when I met Robbie and I found out he was 56 and never been married, I mean, of course your mind goes to what's wrong with you? There's got to be, there's something wrong.
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into Second Act TV. I want to welcome Treva Brandon Scharf back to Second Act, the dating and life coach and one of my favorite guests. Treva, thanks so much for joining me again.
Thank you. You know, I love you. I love being here.
Thank you.
Oh my God, this is my favorite place to be.
Well, Treva and I, actually we met through your show, Done Being Single, that you co-host with your husband, and which is actually the focus of this segment. You know, you two have a really unique story. Well, it's more and more unique. You both were single all your life. And you didn't meet until after 50. Robbie is slightly older than you. I think he's 5 or 6 years older than you. So, and you met up, you started a relationship, and then got married. Well, yeah, for a lot of people, somebody who has been single all their lives, or is single, or has been single for a very long time, that can be an issue in starting a relationship. Let's talk about that. Is that a red flag? How do you deal with somebody, or how do you go into developing a relationship with someone who's been single for a long time?
Wow. This just happens to be my area of expertise and my wheelhouse, because not only was I single till I was 51 when I got married, but I'm an only child. So I have spent an enormous amount of time alone, on my own, solo, single. And yeah, I have gone through periods of time where it was hard to connect. And I finally did, with a guy that was sort of my male counterpart, for lack of a better word, because he too hadn't been married, and when I met him, he was 56. I was 50. And so we had these two sort of marriage, late blooming first timers. And yes, it was an interesting experience, because most of the guys I had dated up until then had been divorced and, had a little experience. I had none. This is such an interesting topic for me, not just because it's personal, because there's so much that is involved in dating someone who's been single a long time. It's not just, it's why. Why have they been single for a long time? And the timing, and how long have they been single? And how long have they been out of a relationship or divorced? Or
right.
What are there other issues that go into people that want to be single or choose to be single? It's very deep.
Yeah, it is, because to me, it's not and there's articles about this all the time. We've done some spoof videos on never been married, what's wrong with you? Right. Because that is how we're treated, how we're raised, that if you haven't been married, there's something wrong with you. Maybe people who haven't been married are just smarter than those who have, 1, 2, 3, God knows how many divorces, that's somehow right. Better. And like my story is just a little bit, I was married for 25 years, and I was divorced and started dating about, a year or two after that. Paul, who we met, I met 10 years ago, he had been single for like over 12 years. So that, and that's interesting too, when you come from a relationship-based, situation into somebody who's very comfortable being single, what you might have to deal with and what you do and don't do. So I kind of just want to talk with you about it like we are girlfriends. When is not being single something where you're just afraid to commit, or you have commitment phobias? Or when is it just that you're comfortable and, you just haven't found the right one?
Oh, it's an interesting equation. I don't know how much you know about attachment theory. Do you know about attachment
A little bit.
theory?
We've actually done videos on it, with Dr. Gary Salyer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you say Gary Salyer?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's the best.
Yes. I think you have had him on too. Afraid to, yeah.
He really, we had him on our podcast to talk about this thing, and I believe in it. When I learned about attachment theory, it was like getting the keys to the kingdom, because I was really able to understand why I had been single, and I chose to be single for a long time. Okay, because it wasn't all just I'm a victim of, singleness. No, for a long time, I made a conscious choice. Like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I am not ready to settle down for the rest of my life. I am just not. I'm not. And that lasted a really long time, like 20s, 30s, way into my 40s, when it suddenly hit me. And then I learned about attachment theory, and there was fear for me. There was, I didn't grow up seeing healthy love being demonstrated. I didn't see, my parents weren't a couple. I grew up with a single mom who never really needed a man. So I had that sort of information running in my brain. And so I kind of prided myself on not needing a man for a really long time. And then when I felt I was ready, then, oh my gosh, then all I was meeting were divorced guys who weren't ready. So on top of my own lousy timing, then I had to deal with this dating pool of guys in their 40s and 50s that were just getting out of marriages and were in no hurry to get back in. Mm-hmm. And so I had to deal sort of with that. But, just because you're single for a long time or don't want to attach or get involved doesn't mean it's a pathology.
Right.
And I think that we all have to stop, waving red flags at each other. When I met Robbie and I found out he was 56 and never been married. I mean, of course your mind goes to, what's wrong with you? There's something wrong. Why are you single? But then I have to say, well, wait a minute. People could make the same judgment about me. Why was I single for so long?
Right. Well, and then again, on the other side of it, if it's one person has been, the other isn't, like it was with Paul and I. And one of the things I do want to discuss in here is a few tips on how to adjust to this, to either both of you being, single, now you're having to learn how to be in a relationship, or where one person is relationship oriented and the other one really isn't. Like, again, for Paul and I, it says here that, be prepared for, and this would go for all of us, for someone who is really set in their ways, because they and it's going to be hard for them to adjust, as I'm reading this here, what it means to be in a relationship. And they need a lot of, alone time. And one of the big things, and I wonder if that's true for you guys too, is that, like, don't be clingy. That's the first thing that's going to run somebody off.
Oh yeah, no, clinginess will suck the life out of you. Mm-hmm. It's just, again, speaks volumes about who the person is and where does that come from? Where I think clinginess does involve a level of a little pathology, not horrible, but why are you afraid to be on your own? Why are you afraid to be alone? What is it about solitude that freaks you out? Why can't you be alone with your thoughts? Why do you need attachment? Do you need external validation? Do you need someone to make you feel better about yourself? I mean, all these questions. But yes, clinginess to me equals desperation.
Yes.
And desperation, in whatever form it takes, is just not a good look at all.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But yes, I do. And I think that at the end of all of this is just communication and having the courage to communicate what you need.
Yes.
And so that will clear up so much misunderstanding and suspicion.
Yes. Yeah. And then I really had to come to terms with, coming from a very controlling marriage where, that was what the relationship was, to being in a relationship where there wasn't any control. And it's almost like, well, what's wrong with that?
Right.
It's really, really super interesting. That's what I wanted to, bring up in case some viewers, feel the same way. Because honestly, being with someone who isn't controlling and who's independent and is okay to be alone, that's a blessing. And what I ultimately realized, like with Paul, this channel never would have gotten started if I'd started dating or become in a relationship with anybody that wasn't comfortable with me doing this, talking about this stuff, doing what I need to do, travel, take my time. So, I've gained a lot of understanding there, and I bring that up about me. If that cues something in you or in you who are watching, what is it about not being able to truly accept someone, or not understand someone who has been single for a long time? It's not necessarily a red flag.
No, it's not. And I think that this is what we're communicating to each other is so important, because it'll uncover really wonderful things about that person and each other, number one, but it'll also it'll explain, why is this person a little arm's distance? Why is this person a little standoffish? Why am I having to chase? Or why do I feel like they're just keeping me sort of right at the periphery? Or why am I? What am I doing? Am I keeping someone kind of right, not letting them in all the way because I'm afraid of getting hurt? Because it's safer to be single than to open yourself up and be vulnerable. There are a lot of people like that. They won't even take a chance because and therefore they stay stuck in singleness because it's safe, and that's not healthy.
Right.
So part of the partnering process, and by the way, as it turns out, Robbie has a secure attachment style. And if you asked him, he would just say, oh, I hadn't met the person yet. I just hadn't met the right person. And I really, truly believe that. And I think he was comfortable on his own for the first 50 plus years. I don't think he was in a hurry. And I think he really, truly, after I dug, I'm like, what's wrong with you? I found out, no, there's really nothing wrong with him. And he had a nice relationship with his mother. And he was a pretty secure guy. I, on the other hand, was the one with the anxious avoidance style. I was the runner. I was the runaway girlfriend.
So you were the red flag.
I was it. But until when I started to understand my attachment style, why did I keep running? Or why did I, at times I was clingy. I found that guys that pushed me away or weren't ready to commit, or commitment were very bad for me, very bad. Because they pushed those anxious, they made me anxious. And then it made me either cling harder, or it made me nuts. It made me worry. It made me wonder. Yuck. It did bad things for me. And so I find that understanding your own psychology in this whole thing, in this whole equation, is so empowering.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I learned, you learned, based on what you're saying, is really you have to be able to be yourself in whatever relationship you find yourself in.
Yes.
And the whole topic about is being single or being single for a long time. Oh no, I would never go out with somebody, or even no, the guy's never been married. No, not going there. And I hear this all the time too when we bring this up. So I want to throw it out there. I want to get comments from our viewers how they feel about this. Is it a red flag? Is it not? What do you think?
Even if it is a red flag, it's something to explore.
Right.
Unless it's a horrific, egregious, giant, waving like red flag, stay away, dig a little, probe a little, ask some questions.
Yeah.
And if you're the one that's feeling anxious and avoidant, look at that. Read up on it. It's really fascinating. And it'll really explain a lot about why you love the way that you love. And then, as we were talking in the last segment about self-acceptance and accepting who you are, accepting your height, your weight, your age, your looks, your attachment style. And if you need to bring in the bigger guns, this is when to get to a level of acceptance, you hire a coach, to get you over those tough things where you're able to say, this is who I am. I come to this relationship with some issues, which I did. I told him.
We all do.
And but you're a certain age. Come on. If you're single at a certain age, you've been around the block a few times. You have some, some scar tissue, some battle scar wounds. Who doesn't? And that's all kind of can be very endearing and lovely and very compelling too, and
Right. Well,
interesting.
yeah, as long as you learn from it, of course.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly. They make another good point here is that while dating or getting into a relationship with somebody who's been single for a really long time or never been married, the good stuff is that they know what they want if they've kept single for that long, or they should anyway, unless they're
Yes.
totally messed up, and that they aren't willing to settle, and that's not a bad thing.
That's a great thing. That's fantastic. Good for you if you've achieved that level of independence and self-reliance and comfortability in your skin. Good job. Yes, but that my mother always had a saying. That's a virtue, by the way. But a virtue, when misused, becomes a vice.
Yes.
So,
That's
let's
good.
be careful. Be careful of what you perceive as being virtuous and super strong and independent. That's great, but are you unavailable?
Mm-hmm.
Are you avoidant? Are you manipulative? Are you passive aggressive? It's a fine line, babe. What starts off as being a virtue can easily turn into a vice if you don't really watch it.
Yeah. Well, that's why these conversations are so interesting. And to me, anything is like, it's never all this, all that. Everything in this is a gray area, unless there's abuse, aggressive behavior. That's a black and white to me. But anything that has to do with why we are a certain way, no matter what it is, if we can just learn about ourselves and talk about it, like you said, communicate with the person that we're growing with, that's really the answer to it may not work out.
Sure.
But there's where that hope and the ability resurfaces, right? And we're starting to come to the end, so I want you to think about that.
I would just say to anybody meeting someone who's been single for a super long time, there's nothing wrong with asking in a way that's well paced and not too invasive in the beginning. But find out why. What are you afraid of? Were you hurt? Were you traumatized? Is there, do you feel vulnerable letting people in? And how can we proceed at a good pace that's comfortable for you and non-threatening? And what do you need? And here's what I need. I need someone that is not going to push me away. I need someone that is going to be honest. This is all stuff that you work out as you get to know each other. And it's important work to do. And if you don't, like I said, if you feel that you are being sort of held up in a way from proceeding, that's when you get a little help. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great.
Exactly. I actually have a segment coming up on single shaming, which I think is going to be really interesting. I've got, because there's nothing wrong with being single. If you're going into a relationship, however, then you just need to, I guess the issue is, how do we come together? How do we build that relationship when we bring a lot of independence and singleton to that union? And with that, Treva, thank you.
I could talk another hour on that subject.
Well, maybe we'll do 2 segments on it. We'll talk about single shaming.
Wow. Single shaming, and that's a huge one. But yes, the part B to this episode is, making it work later in life. How do you meld your lives when you've lived either alone a long time or are coming together later in life, and you have your own ways and you're set and you've got your habits and your creature wow, that's some good stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. Treva, thank you so much. As always, we'll link to all of your information if you want to talk with Treva directly. She's a terrific coach, both life, dating, well, and actually a fitness coach too.
Yes, and there's that. There is that.
There's that too. And then your great podcast, Done Being Single, always fun. Love Robbie. Tell him hello, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
On Second Act Teaching.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can click on this little button right here, click right through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too, and we'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.